Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be addressing you. Um, Let me start by saying this. This is yours truly, Attorney Michael Cord, aka Michael X, aka the angriest black man in America. And although it goes without saying, some people might not know. So let me just explain why I call myself the angriest black man in America. James Baldwin said something years ago, a powerful statement, which was to be black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. And I want to be clear, it's not a destructive rage, it's not a counterproductive rage, it's not a negative rage. It's actually a productive and constructive rage. It's the type of rage that makes you read and makes you write and makes you go to school and makes you understand your history so you can avenge your ancestors. Black people have gone through hell in America, and our ancestors must be avenged. And I want to be clear, when I say avenged, I don't mean revenge. Avenge and revenge are not synonymous. Revenge means I do the very bad, the very, or I should say, the very same bad thing to you that you did to me. And I hope folks are writing this down because people confuse what avenge and revenge means. Once again, revenge means I do the very same bad thing to you that you did to me. Whereas avenge is something completely different. While revenge focuses on the victimizer, avenge focuses on the victim. And I focus on the victims, my ancestors, by telling their story, by proclaiming their history, and by setting the record straight. And most important, by fighting for the descendants of my ancestors. That means my brothers and sisters today, my children and grandchildren and great grandchildren and everybody else. That's why today we'll be focusing on two topics. And by the way, those of you who are tuning in, I'm not sure exactly how you're tuning in, but I encourage you to spread the word. Let folks know that we can be seen and heard on Comcast channels 66 and 966. That's the first way. Comcast channels 66 and 966 from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. today. But it's not just that. Spread the word and let folks know that we can be seen and heard at Verizon Fios channels 29 and 30. Once again, Verizon Fios channels 29 and 30. You want more? We got more. You can also see and hear and feel us at phillycam.org/web dash channel. Once again, phillycam.org/dash, I should say /web dash channel. Those are three ways you can check us out, but there's a fourth way. We're also on Facebook. So you can see and hear and feel us everywhere and anywhere. We have two topics today, and I posted information about the two topics on social media, specifically on Twitter and Instagram. And here's what I posted. Tune in today when attorney Michael X, host of TV Courtroom, this show here, discusses the following. One, historic civil rights lawsuit filed by the preeminent, and I do mean preeminent, Mincy Fitzpatrick Ross law firm. And the guest from that law firm to talk about this historic civil rights lawsuit is none other than Thomas Fitzpatrick, attorney at law. In fact, if you check out that Twitter page, my Twitter page and Instagram page, you'll see a photograph of the three partners. In particular, you'll see Thomas Fitzpatrick. We'll hear from him. We'll see him in about 11, 12 minutes. The other topic we're dealing with is also on that Facebook, I should say on that social media post, in particular, Twitter and Instagram. What does it say? Well, since you asked, I'll tell you. It says Black Dollars Matter. Michael X's provocative Tribune column that exposes the racism of Philadelphia employers. So what I've done is what the black folks in city council should have done, what the black folks in the state legislature should have done, at least those from Philadelphia. That's to find out some of the most influential, largest, employers in Philadelphia and question them about what they're doing or not doing for Black employees and Black consumers. Well, my mentor, the great ancestor, Charles W. Bowser, Esquire, he said something to me a long time ago before he passed away, obviously. And what he said was this: Black people tend to be like folks who drive past a horrific car accident on the highway. And each time we drive past that accident, we all say the same thing: wow, that's a horrible accident. Somebody ought to do something. Well, the great Charles Bowser said, you're somebody, you do something. So instead of me complaining about what city council hasn't done, in particular, what the Black folks on city council haven't done, or what the Pennsylvania state legislature has not done, or what the Black members from Philadelphia and the Pennsylvania state legislature, what they haven't done, instead of complaining about all that, do it yourself. So as a columnist for the Philadelphia Tribune, which, by the way, is the oldest continuously published newspaper, Black newspaper in American history. Yeah, that's what I said, because it's a fact. The Philadelphia Tribune is the oldest continuously published Black newspaper in America. And I'm proud to be a columnist there. And in connection with that, I have a duty to continue the mission of the founders of the Philadelphia Tribune, and that is to speak on behalf of Black folks. That's why I have this column called Black Dollars Matter, where we focus on race and racism in regard to economics. And what I'm working on now is the employment component of economics. We'll talk more about that later. By the way, those of you who want to follow me outside of TV Courtroom, you might want to follow me on social media. You might want to follow me at the Philadelphia Tribune. You might also want to follow me at WURD. And here's how you can do it. Write it down. Philadelphia Tribune. All you got to do is go to phillytrib.com. That's it. phillytrib.com. And our producer extraordinaire, Roland, posted that. phillytrib.com. Once you get to that website, type in Cord, and you can read all the articles that I write for that newspaper. And by the way, I started out writing a weekly column, and it's published every Sunday. But things went, I should say, things went so well that the editors there, the ownership said, hey, Mike, this column you're writing each Sunday, known as Freedom's Journal, is so impressive. We want you to do something else. And we know you're busy as a writer, as a columnist. You teach at Temple University. But we'd like you to write about Black economics. But we're not going to put pressure on you and ask you to do that once a week like your other column. We're going to ask you to do that once a month. In fact, we're going to do it the first Tuesday of each month. So if you go to phillytrib.com, type in Cord, all my columns will come up. That's the first way to follow me. The second way, you just saw that. Our producer extraordinaire, Roland, posted that. I host a show called The Radio Courtroom every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at WURD 96.1 FM. Also, WURD 900 AM, and also at WURDradio.com. It's called The Radio Courtroom every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's how you can follow me, by way of media. Also, you can follow me by way of social media. That's very easy. Go to Twitter, go to Instagram, and simply type in my name, Michael, Michael, Cord, Coard. So it's all there. And I mentioned that because this is just a 1 hour show, and it's the first Friday of each month. So I can't get in everything during these 60 minutes. But at least I can refer you to other sources where you can find out whatever you need to know. There's a lot going on. We want to talk about a whole lot. I can't wait until, we got about maybe 6 minutes, 5-6 minutes, because we're going to hear from a great attorney, but not just a great attorney, but a great Black attorney from a great Black law firm. And for me, that's important, not only because I'm a Black attorney, but we as Black folks have to learn to do for self. I'm not saying that we should not accept or even sometimes seek assistance for those outside our community. But you notice other people tend to seek their own first. But Black people, because of self-hate, we've been taught that. Brother Malcolm has some powerful speeches about who taught you to hate yourself. But we go outside of ourselves first when we should remain within ourselves. We should do for self. And speaking of Black law firms, it's funny because it wasn't until Johnny Cochran did his thing as counsel for O.J. Simpson. And by the way, O.J. Simpson is guilty. Well, let me correct myself. O.J. Simpson is not guilty, but he did it. Let me repeat that. O.J. Simpson is not guilty, but he did it. You might say, well, how can a person be not guilty, but did the crime? Very simple. The evidence wasn't there. It wasn't presented properly. There was not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And simply because you do something does not mean that you're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not that you are found guilty. I mean, we see that all the time. For example, look at the Derek Chauvin case. Yeah, he was found guilty, but many people thought that, hey, look at him murdering this black man, George Floyd, right here for everybody to see for almost 10 minutes, strangling him to death. So we all see it. What's the point of a trial? Well, the point of a trial is to see if the evidence can be presented properly to determine if the person is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So just because you see the person do something does not necessarily mean the person is guilty. There's a difference between doing the crime and being guilty of the crime, but I digress. What I'm saying is that O.J. Simpson did it. He had the means, he had the motive, had the opportunity, just some horrific prosecutors, and they just fumbled the ball. But my point is, O.J. Simpson had a great attorney, a great black attorney in the form of Johnny Cochran. And for many people in America, black people, that was the first time they saw or knew about a black lawyer doing his thing. I mean, if you're from Philly, you got to know about Cecil B. Moore, you got to know about Charles Bowser, you got to know about Benjamin Johnson. And even beyond that, you should have learned about Thurgood Marshall. He wasn't born a Supreme Court justice. He was the top lawyer for the NAACP. And look at what he did. And don't get me started about Charles Hamilton Houston, who was the dean of civil rights in America. So I was hoping that with Johnny Cochran doing his thing, that folks would understand that there's some great black lawyers out here. So why do you always go outside of your community to find somebody else, whether it's a plumber or a carpenter or whatever? And then you got some people say, well, I hired a black plumber and he just destroyed the pipes in my bathroom. Okay, he might have been a horrible plumber, but he wasn't the only black plumber. You could have gone to a second black plumber or a third black plumber. Same thing for a carpenter. Hey, that black carpenter tore up my carpet and didn't measure things right. Okay, he might have been a bad carpenter, but he wasn't the only black carpenter. So when we see other folks, if there's an Asian carpenter and he screws up your carpets, your home, you don't say, I'm not going back to any Asian carpenters. You say, I'm not going back to that Asian carpenter. If an Italian plumber messes up your pipes, you don't say, hey, I'm never going to hire an Italian plumber. You just won't hire that Italian plumber. But let it be, God forbid, let it be a black plumber or a black carpenter or a black lawyer who doesn't do the right thing. All of a sudden, you as a black person says, I'm never hiring a black plumber again. I'm never hiring a black carpenter. I'm never hiring a black lawyer again. Black people, we got to do better. We got to do much, much better. So I'm proud to have in just a couple minutes a black attorney who's just flawless. I mean, from a black firm that's just flawless. I mean, they do great work, and it's wonderful for somebody like me to be able to brag about them. I'm not part of their firm, but I brag about that firm like I am part of it. Why? Because there's brothers and sisters, and those brothers and sisters who do their thing, I want to wave the banner for them. I want to tell their story because they have a great story to tell. I mean, in general, about being a successful black law firm with, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I don't know how many lawyers they got there, but they're all impressive. But it's not just these impressive black lawyers, but it's this black law firm that does so very well for everybody. Don't get me wrong, they don't just represent black folks, but when they do represent black folks, they do their thing. And there's a case that I want to talk to you all about. Actually, I want this attorney, my guest, to talk to you about, because it does what needs to be done, not just for the clients of this Black law firm, but for Black folks throughout Pennsylvania. And we're about to have, for you to see and for you to hear, preeminent attorney Thomas Fitzpatrick. I'm going to talk a little bit about him when we get him up, and we're going to talk, most important, about the case he's working on. And just as I said, my producer extraordinaire Roland is so flawless, and we got Thomas Fitzpatrick up. And those of you who are listening, you can see him and you're going to feel him as he talks a little about what he does. Let me talk first about his background, and then we're going to talk about some of the cases that he's involved in. Let me start by saying this. Attorney Thomas Fitzpatrick is a founding partner in the law firm of Mincy Fitzpatrick Ross, LLC. That law firm is Pennsylvania's largest, I repeat, largest African-American civil rights, personal injury, and criminal defense firm, with offices throughout the region and a willingness to go wherever the fight is. We're going to talk about that because I know these attorneys, and they go everywhere. They go to places in Alabama, correction, Pennsylvania, same thing. They go to places in Pennsylvania/Alabama that I would never go. And not only do they go there and battle for Black folks, they win for Black folks. Fitz and his partners have taken the lead on a number of notable trials and have even prevailed in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, creating a precedent regarding the scope of employment doctrine in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania pertaining to police brutality case. Without further ado, attorney extraordinaire Thomas Fitzpatrick. How are you today?
I'm well, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. And by the way, I just love that fly shirt. It looked like you stole that out of my closet, but that's like, I like that. I love it, man. Powerful, powerful, powerful. So let's do this. I kind of talked a little bit about your background. Today, we're obviously going to talk about some important cases that you're involved in connection with Chester Township and its police department, which to me is just mind-boggling that in the 21st century in the North, that something like that could happen. That case reminds me of something that could have happened in the 19th or 20th century in Alabama. So let's talk a little bit first about a little more about your background. I want people to know that even though you look like you're about 30 years old, you've been practicing law for a while, you're not new to this. Talk a little bit about your background and the background of the firm.
Well, Michael, first of all, thank you for everything that you do for the community, and thank you for having me on your show here this afternoon. I will take the 30 years old. I appreciate that. I'll take that back to the right people.
Okay.
Mike, we started this firm back in 2013, but Kevin and I, we were practicing in another law firm going back to 2010, 2011. And one of our goals was to make sure that we created a firm where people from our community could receive first-class service as well as first-class representation in the courtroom. And so we've made that our goal. And I think that we've been successful in doing that and fighting a number of civil rights cases and beginning with the criminal defense of many of those cases. As you know, that's how many of the civil rights cases come to be. They start off as a bogus criminal case against clients, where we then have to first beat back the criminal charges in order to bring the civil rights claim. So we've been successful in doing that over a number of years. We have about 8 attorneys, as you know. Riley Ross is another of our partners who began his career as a federal defender in the Federal Defender's Office. And so we've been proud to serve the community, and we're excited about every opportunity that we get to right a wrong. And that's what our focus is. We call it justice first, and we go after that, understanding that many times the powers that be only truly feel us when that justice comes in the form of hitting them in the pocketbooks. So we make that a focus of ours as well, to recover for our clients and to try to get the people compensation for the wrongs that they've suffered. So that's what we've been committed to doing for the community. We're going to continue to do that. We do that in the areas of civil rights, criminal defense, as well as personal injury, medical malpractice. We've talked about that in the past on your show. All of those things we view as compelling civil rights issues within our communities. So that's what we do. That's what we're focused on. And again, we're happy to be here.
Well, thank you for saying that. And let me jump into what I talked about in introducing you. You know, I can see there are many courageous Black attorneys who do their thing in Philadelphia courtrooms. Why do you and your firms why do you and the members of your firm go outside of Philadelphia? And I jokingly called it Alabama, but pretty much outside of Philadelphia and Allegheny County, it essentially is Alabama. Why do you all go out there? Because many Black attorneys are intimidated by that.
Well, Michael, it started with people from Philadelphia moving to other places and knowing us from having us represent them here in Philadelphia. And so when you establish a trust with the people and with the community, they tend to come back to you when they have other issues. So those began our inroads into those other areas. But the reason that we go is quite simply stated, as you stated, we go where the fight is. So we go where people have been underrepresented and where people have been wronged. That's where we go. So whether that's in Erie, where we have an office in Erie, Pennsylvania, we also have an office in Washington, D.C. We've tried cases as far away as the Southern District of Florida, all the way to Detroit, Michigan. So we've been up and down the Eastern Seaboard and into the Midwest of the United States, fighting on behalf of clients. And we're going to continue to do that. We think that it's important.
You all don't just fight, Fitz, you all fight and win. I want to spend the bulk of our discussion talking about this Chester Township stuff. And I know a little bit about it. I covered it when the story first broke. I did that on behalf of WRD. But I just want you to tell people how crazy this is. I don't want to get into it now because I'm going to talk first about this Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision. But the idea that Black folks outside their home could be arrested and charged with loitering is just mind-boggling to me. If I hadn't seen the news reports about it, I would assume that somebody was making it up, that it just can't be true that you could be arrested for loitering outside of your home. But we'll get to that. Let's talk about this Pennsylvania Supreme Court case, because as you can see, I got Brother Malcolm next to me, and he whispers to me every time I talk to lawyers. He always says, come on now, all that convoluted legal mumbo jumbo, we don't have time for that. Let's, quote, make it plain. So Fitz, I want you to make it plain. Talk first about how difficult it is for the Supreme Court to get the Supreme Court to even entertain your argument, and then it's almost impossible to win it. Talk about that Pennsylvania Supreme Court case regarding the scope of employment in connection with police brutality cases.
Certainly, Mike. So again, as you correctly articulated, it's nearly impossible to get heard by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. They have so many cases that are brought to them for judgment and for them to hear, that they simply don't have the capacity to hear all of those cases. And if they don't believe that the case represents a compelling point of law that can help to kind of unmuddy the waters in the Commonwealth, then more than likely they won't hear your case. So the first thing you have to do is you have to be in a position to litigate and try a case of great consequence to the citizens in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So again, through our work and what we do, quite frankly, we're able to come across those kinds of matters. In this particular case, Justice V. Lombardo, you had a state trooper who had arrested a woman on the side of the road after he had conducted what we call a live stop in Philadelphia, where he had taken her car for outstanding tickets. And so once the tow truck had come and taken her car away, one would think that Miss Justice would have been free to go on about her business. She was off on the side of the road. She had gone over the Jersey barrier, which is that concrete barrier between the highway and the grassy part of the freeway. And so she was in the grassy area, and the officer became aggressive. He became irate. He jumped that Jersey barrier. He handcuffed Miss Justice in front of her 19-year-old stepson. All of this is caught on video, thank God. And we were able to bring that case to trial. We prevailed at trial. The Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania ruled against us. They are the first level of appellate court when you are suing a state entity. And so after that, we appealed the matter to the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court on the issue of scope of employment and whether or not this trooper Lombardo was operating within the scope of his employment, and what exactly are the factors that go into determining whether or not a state actor is acting within the scope of their employment. And so the outrageous conduct by Trooper Lombardo was viewed by the state Supreme Court, And without getting into too much of a convoluted discussion about that matter, and I would certainly implore all of your guests to look that matter up. It is Justice v. Lombardo, and you can get greater detail about what it means to be within the scope of employment and how we're able to overcome sovereign immunity as it relates to bringing suit against a state actor. And so ultimately, we prevailed in that matter. The Supreme Court ruled in our favor. And I believe at that time, we were the first Black law firm to successfully litigate a claim in the state Supreme Court for nearly 50 years at that point. So we're very proud of that case. And every one of these wins, they build on one another, and they leave you with the sense that we can accomplish great change within our society for all of us, not just for Black people, but for everyone within our community. We can achieve a greater sense of justice. And that's what we've been able to do. And so we're very happy about Lombardo v. Justice, or Justice v. Lombardo, and the way that turned out for us in the state Supreme Court.
You know, Fitz, I know you as a modest and humble man, but that was a historic case in the true sense of the word. And again, just so people can appreciate the importance of it, prior to your victory in the state Supreme Court, what was the law regarding this issue?
Prior to our victory, the state actors had what we call sovereign immunity, which means basically that you can't go around suing police officers for essentially doing their job, handcuffing people, taking people to jail if they thought that they had a legitimate reason for doing so. And even if they didn't think they had a legitimate reason for doing so, there are so many people arrested in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that states are going to enjoy what's called sovereign immunity when it comes to filing claims against the government for police officers doing things of that nature. And so Justice v. Lombardo, what that case did was that case better articulated and laid out a certain test for whether or not the outrageous conduct of the officer would be one that would be anticipated by the employer, and whether or not the officer was actually acting within the scope of his employment. In the case of Lombardo, as I told you, the tow truck had towed her vehicle away, and Miss Justice was already on the other side of the Jersey barrier. So she was out of danger. She was not blocking the highway or obstructing the highway. And so the state Supreme Court ruled that his job was over at that point. He had done his job at that point. And so he no longer enjoyed sovereign immunity when he jumped that Jersey barrier, harassed her, handcuffed her, took her to the ground, and threatened her. And so, again, as you state, you're absolutely right. It's an historic victory. And I want people to know that case and take a look at that case. So that they can bring it up to their attorneys if they get into one of these situations where they're wondering if the police did something that they were allowed to do, and so on and so forth. It really matters. It's important. There are obviously legal idiosyncrasies that need to be fleshed out and looked at when you look at something like that. Things like state actors versus local police and that kind of thing. So it's not necessarily for lay people to try to interpret, but it's something that you certainly want to bring to the attention of your counsel.
Very well said. And Brother Malcolm is nodding his head in approval because you made it plain. You know, that's a convoluted legal issue, but you certainly broke it down. I got to tell you, Fitz, before we jump in this Chester Township thing, Brother Malcolm and I are nodding our head nonstop about your attire today. I got to tell you, man, I'm jealous. You know, I thought I'd come on the show all fly with a custom-made suit, and that's a cheeky, man. I want that. I actually
Mike, you always look great,
man. But I want that, man, because that is powerful. It's stylish. It's cultural. I was always impressed with you, man. But today, based on your gear alone, I'm even more impressed, man. I really am. Well done,
I appreciate
man.
It,
very well done. Having said that, let's get into the nitty-gritty. And what I posted on social media is the following, and I want you to elaborate. Today, renowned civil rights attorney Fitz will detail his law firm's suit against Chester Township and its police department on behalf of Black Pennsylvania families. This suit stems from Black families arrested, check this out, for loitering outside their own homes. Also, Fitz will discuss the criminal component of this case involving charges that were dropped. Take your time, Fitz. What is this about? What happened? Where's the case now?
Okay, so Mike, I'll start with the history of the statute. This is a loitering statute that was put on the books in Chester City and in Chester Township. Chester City around August of 1990, Chester Township December of 1990. Around 2003, the statute was actually challenged in Chester City. And after making its way through the courts in 2012, the statute is found to be unconstitutionally vague. So now we have an unconstitutional statute. Chester Township, which sits next door and even shares city offices with Chester City, does nothing. They leave their version of the statute on the books, which is virtually identical to the Chester City statute. And so from 1990 until the filing of our lawsuit, officers within Chester Township have continued to use this statute as a basis for harassing, for arresting, for beating, charging people with criminal offenses, and fining people in this community for loitering essentially outside of their homes and in their neighborhoods, at the basketball court, in their own community. This is one of the most egregious things that I've seen in years. And what I mean by that is that Chester Township is certainly on notice that this statute is unconstitutional based upon the history of this very same statute within Chester City, which is right next door. So, Mike, as you know, under the rules of professional conduct, we're not allowed to litigate these cases in the media. But what's very important to us, and the reason why we continue to have press conferences and shine a light on this particular case, is what you spoke about earlier, the criminal charges that are pressed against the families who are the victims of these police officers in this case. These people suffer great embarrassment, great pain and suffering within the community, a loss of standing within the community. And just so that we're clear, Mike, these are upstanding people. These are people with jobs who go to work. These are not criminals who were engaged in some kind of conduct and now we're angling with some technicality to get them out of trouble. That's not what this is. These are law-abiding citizens going about their business. We're talking about men. In the case of Brandon Alvin, we're talking about a man who was beaten by the police and pepper sprayed and arrested in front of his young children. Okay, 7 and 8 year old children, his entire family watched as he was beaten and arrested by the police and pepper sprayed in front of his own home for loitering. So at the initial press conference that we had back in October of 2019, you may recall, I looked at the camera and I said, who the hell do they think they are? And that remains my sentiment to this day about the way that they perpetrated these offenses on these people in this community. And so in this particular case, there was an officer by the name of Pascal Storrs. Officer Storrs conducted a loitering stop on Brandon Alvin on September the 21st of 2019. Again, that's the case that we're talking about where Mr. Alvin was beaten and arrested. And Mr. Alvin happened to have a cousin who lives next door to him. And his cousin stood there, Mr. Edward Baldwin, and watched. And of course, he commented that this wasn't right. And the police then attacked Mr. Baldwin, who was utilizing a walker, okay, and arrested Mr. Baldwin and charged him with resisting arrest, charged Mr. Alvin with resisting arrest and aggravated assault on police, the typical charges that you and I see all the time, Mike, when someone is beaten by the police and these charges are trumped up to justify the brutality that's been visited upon these people. And so that occurs all in September 21st of 2019 or thereabouts. On October the 2nd of 2019, Ramir Briggs and Keith Briggs are arrested by the same police officer, Pascal Storrs, for loitering in front of their home. They're handcuffed, they're put in the back of a police car, they're taken to the station, Their items are taken, which still have not been returned to this day, I might add. So cell phones and that kind of thing, property that has still not been returned to this very day, taken from them. They're locked up. They're issued citations under this loitering statute. You can be charged a fine of up to $600. And if you're unable to pay that fine, you can be imprisoned for up to 30 days. And this happens to Keith and Ramir Briggs on October the 2nd, 2019. Ramir Briggs and Keith Briggs are released from custody. They return home on October the 3rd, the very next day, on October the 3rd. The very same officer, Pascal Stores, returns to their home and once again arrests them for loitering in front of their own home.
Fitz, that can't be true. That just can't be true. You have to be exaggerating.
I am not exaggerating. And in fact, that's a good point. I'm glad that you brought this up, Mike. And I want to cue this for the viewers here. Keep your cell phones going. Keep your cell phone videos active, because everything that I'm telling you right now, Mike, is on video. Everything that I'm telling you is on video from September the 21st with Mr. Alvin and Mr. Baldwin to the incident on October the 3rd. So on October the 3rd, when the Briggs family is arrested for the second time, this time it is Keith Briggs, it is Ramir Briggs, it is Kenyatta Lewis, and it is Rachel Briggs, and it's a minor member of their family who are all arrested. So on October the 3rd, they double down and they arrest not 2 members of the Briggs family, but they arrest 5 members of the Briggs family on the curbage of their home for loitering. And in the case of the minor was on the porch protesting the fact that his family members were being arrested. And officers go on that porch, they pull him down over the railing of that porch through the bushes. They attack the family, they beat the family, they throw the women down on the ground, they handcuff them, they throw them in the back of squad cars, they arrest them all. Throughout the whole thing, you can hear family members asking, why are they doing this? You hear them saying that they live here. You hear them trying to provide identification to prove that they live there. Now I'm telling you about one particular police officer, Pascal Stores. Okay, but I want you to know that on October the 3rd, there were supervisors on the scene. Okay, there were supervisors on the scene. So in the lawsuit that we filed, we've also included a number of John Does who were also present at the scene, that being police officers who are unnamed, we don't know their names and so forth. So this includes supervisors. So our lawsuit on behalf of Mr. Alvin, Mr. Baldwin, and the Briggs family is against Chester Township, the Chester Township Police, Officer Pascal Stores, and a number of John Does. As you know, we do how we file suits, Michael, to preserve claims against those police officers out there who weren't forthcoming with their identification, or you can't identify them from the video, but we know that they were there, and we know that supervisors were on the scene. So this is all on video.
Let me ask you this, Fitz. So we hear you tell that story, and we understand clearly based on how you were so clear in breaking it down. But in addition, now you said there were citations given. What's the process there? What's the procedure out there in that township? Does the charging unit from the DA's office get involved, or does the officer just issue a citation and the defendant has to come back? I'm wondering if a lawyer for Chester Township approved any of this.
Well, I'll start with the citations. The citations are issued by the police department and don't require the assistance of a prosecutor in terms of issuing the citation.
So just so
however,
they were all citations for summary offenses. No misdemeanors or any felonies because break it down for us.
No, the citations for loitering are issued by the police without the assistance of prosecutors. However, in the cases that we're talking about, in addition to those citations, these people were charged with criminal offenses. They were charged with actual criminal offenses, resisting arrest, assault on police. Okay. They were charged with actual criminal offenses. And so after our press conference in October of 2019, I can guarantee you this, those matters were reviewed by the district attorney's office at that point. Okay, so since that time, we've been able to secure the withdrawal of all criminal charges against all of the family members and against Mr. Alvin and Mr. Baldwin as well.
I'm glad you broke that down, Fitz, because I'm saying, okay, with the summary offenses, citations, but the others we're talking about misdemeanors and felonies, and I'm assuming that you all had to go in and litigate in front of a judge and get your clients acquitted. But based on how I'm sure aggressive and zealous you all were, you were able to get the Commonwealth to withdraw. So you never had to step into a courtroom in regard to the criminal charges or citation. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We had to step into a courtroom, Mike. We did not have to litigate at that time, but we certainly had to go to court on a couple of occasions. Of course, as you know, many times what will happen is the district attorney will show up at the very first court listen and tell the judge that he's unprepared and he needs what? He needs further investigation. You know this.
That's a catchphrase all over the country. I think that's the first day of DA schooling. Is that you got to say further investigation. In other words, what you're really saying is that this is a BS case. I ain't ready. But instead of saying that, you say further investigation. So go ahead. So tell us when you get into a courtroom, what actually happened? Did you have to make an argument? Did the Commonwealth simply null pros? Walk us through it.
So first off, Mike, you got to know this, right? First off, at a beginning point, we're talking about seven defendants, okay, and multiple court listings. And so all of this goes to harm the community. I mean, think about it. What now, in our case, it's different because we knew that we were bringing this civil rights claim behind this, okay? But think about this in terms of all of the cases out there where they've done this to people, and we found many. These are the ones that were ripe for what we were doing now to make the point that we're making. But we found many. And think about all those times, all those years from 1990 until now, 2021, where people were charged, where people were beaten, where people had to pay an attorney to go to court, or where people had to pay a fine, or if they couldn't pay the fine, where people served 30 days or less in jail as a result of not being able to pay the fine for loitering outside of their home. So the impact, as I stated before, this is systemic and it is pervasive in terms of how these folks have been treated and the discriminatory impact of this loitering statute within that community.
I got to tell you, Fitz, you're such a great guest. We were supposed to have you for about 10 to 12 minutes, but you were just flowing so well and arming the community with some legal knowledge. My second issue I'm going to get to soon, that's kind of like on the back burner now. We'll get to that maybe in the last 5 minutes of the show, but I want to stay with you. Let's do this, Fitz, before I forget. Provide the listening audience with your contact information, website, email address, phone number. How do folks get in touch with you and your firm?
Sure. We can be reached at www.minceyfitzross.com. That's MINCEYFITZROSS.com. You can leave an inquiry there. You can leave your phone number there. You can do all of that through the website, and we can reach back out to you. If you want to reach us by phone, you can do so at 215-550-1999. But again, Mike, I'm happy to have had the opportunity to speak to your guests and be on your show. And I really do want to thank you for shedding a light on issues like this for our community and keeping people informed. I think it's extremely important.
And I appreciate you saying that. In our final couple of minutes, Fitz, what I'd like you to do is to talk about some of the high profile cases your firm is involved in, apart from the one you just mentioned. I know you've had one recently where the police, and these are my words, not your words, pretty much kidnapped a baby out of a vehicle with her parent. And then after kidnapping and snatching up that baby, then used that as a poster to show what a great job the cops are doing to rescue Black babies. Those are my words, not yours, but break it down for us. Say it ain't Michael, so. Say nothing like that happened.
Michael, I assure you, we don't have enough time in this segment to get into that case. But that is a real case, Mike. and we are on the verge of resolution. And I want to come back to you and talk to you in great detail about that case. It was all over the news. The video went viral. And I believe that you don't, I'll just say this. When we come back to discuss that case, you don't want to miss that one. You don't want to miss
I
that
love
one
it.
because we're going to give you details and we're going to give you information. And we believe, quite frankly, some of it will be quite groundbreaking.
I got to tell you, Fitz, you're such a smooth attorney. Every attorney watching this, listening, is like, Fitz respond to that question flawlessly. You know, he said a lot without saying much. Well done. Very well done. What I do in this TV courtroom show and my radio courtroom show on WRD, I have the final 30 to 60 seconds to allow guests to do what I call a closing argument. It's the TV courtroom kind of format, radio courtroom kind of format, and in trials, at least with courtrooms, there's a closing argument. So I'll give you, Fitz, the final 30 seconds, final 60 seconds for your closing argument. You want to add something, repeat something, highlight something, the final 60 seconds are yours.
Well, Michael, again, thank you for having me. And one of the things that I like to tell clients when I meet with them, and I'll impart to your listeners here today, is something that my big mama and my mother always told me, and that is, no one cares how much you know unless they know how much you care. And what we want you to understand about the attorneys at Mincy Fitzpatrick Ross LLC is that we care. We care an awful lot. Yeah, we know some things and we know the law, and we're highly credentialed, and we've attended some of the finest law schools in the area, from Howard University, Villanova University. So we have outstanding training. We have outstanding attorneys. But more than anything, we are attorneys who care. And because we care, that drives us to go the extra mile for our clients, that drives us to go the extra mile for the community in terms of litigating the matters that we have before us. And so you're more than a case, you're a cause. I know people say it, it's a catchy thing to say, but it's true in our case, because like I said, not only are we Black lawyers, we are a Black law firm. So
Yes.
we have Black lawyers throughout our firm. We have Black support staff members. We have members of the community working with us as investigators and as paralegals. And so we keep our ears to the street to know what's going on in communities. We're very active in terms of the activist community reaching out to us and knowing that they can come to us for legal counsel. We are not activists, though. We are attorneys. And so when activists bring something to us, we make sure, as I told you about the case with the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, we make sure that these are matters that have a great impact for our community. And that's the most important thing. So when you see a case that's being brought before you by Mincy Fitzpatrick Ross, you know that it's a case with great implications that are going to be broad ranging for the entire community. And that gets a certain reception, that gets a certain seriousness from the court and from the individuals litigating that case. And that leads us to having great results. And we take great pride in doing that. We're happy to be who we are. We're unapologetic about who we are. And we love the fact that community members come to us with their problems, with their challenges, and they allow us to fight on their behalf. We call ourselves real trial lawyers.
Yes.
So we're not just here to push paper. We're here to get into courtrooms. We're here to be heard by judges and juries, and we're here to make law. And that's what we do, Mike.
I got to tell you, Fitz, I appreciate what you did today. One, in terms of substance, by explaining the law and the cases you're involved in, but also, Fitz, in terms of form. That dashiki, I'm telling you, man, that set the party off right. All you had to do was show up with that, and we could have just ended the show. But well done, man. As I said, in both form and substance. And sometime soon, I'd like to have you back to talk a little more about the other prominent cases that you're involved in and your firm. I got to tell you, when people hear me talk about your firm, they think I'm a part of it. And I'm like, nah, they're just my cousins. I'm not a part of it, but they're my cousins.
We're neighbors, Mike. One Liberty Place, Suite
Yes.
3600.
Yes.
Okay, we're neighbors. So anytime.
Well done. Listening audience, we were honored to have one of the greatest attorneys, not just Black attorneys, one of the greatest attorneys from one of the greatest law firms in and around, not just Philadelphia, but Pennsylvania. Fitz, thank you very much for spending time with us. Well done.
Thank you, brother.
Have a great day. All right, folks, we got about maybe approximately 7-8 minutes to jump into the other topic. And because I promised you it would be about something called Black Dollars Matter, I'm going to spend those final 7-8 minutes talking about it. But I'm going to start by telling you, you can find out everything you need to know about this topic by going to phillytrib.com. That's phillytrib.com. Type in CORD, COARD, and type in Black Dollars Matter. But in my final 5-6 minutes, here's what we're talking about. In this article, what I deal with is, in fact, great job. Here we go with Roland, our producer. White businesses must put up, shut up, or get shut down. And basically what that article is about is Black economic empowerment. And I talk about some of the largest employers in the Philadelphia region, and I'm trying to find out who's doing the right thing for Black employees and Black consumers and who's not. So let me just read a little bit of the article. But again, thanks to Roland, you saw on the screen how you can access it. Although I talk about racism amongst some of Philadelphia's largest employers, I also kind of chastise Black folks. And here's how I do it. I say, what we need to do ultimately is to engage in what's known as systemic, targeted, lawful boycotts. But first, and here's how I write it, I got to be honest about my people. What's wrong with y'all? There are racist stores and racist companies that won't hire you, but you keep going back to fuel their racism by giving them more money. They follow you around inside the stores. They verbally disrespect you. They don't hire you. And despite that, you keep going back. It's like you're financing your own racist victimization. Think about it that way. You're giving money to people to be racist against you. There's something wrong with that. So what I decided to do a while back, actually about 5 years ago, exactly September 10 of 2016, I began something called Philly's Jim Crow. And in that column, I talk about what's going on in terms of racism amongst certain employers in and around Philly. And here's what I write. I say that we have to begin to look at what I call systemic, targeted, lawful boycotts. And boycotts is what it's all about. I mean, I call myself a revolutionary because I am a revolutionary. People think that that means taking up guns and arms and weapons. No, it doesn't. For a number of reasons. One, from an ethical standpoint, it's not the right thing to do. And from a practical standpoint, it's certainly not the right thing to do. Why in the world would I go up with one gun against an enemy who I know has 1,000 guns? I'd be slaughtered. It's like Clint Eastwood said, make my day. They will be looking for us to do something like that. So let's be strategic. If it's not about armed revolution to make a change here in America, at least in terms of white businesses, what is it? It's boycotts, because boycotts really scare America. Why? Because they mess with America's money, and America is all about nothing but the money. So here's what I write. So let's boycott American businesses that don't give a damn about our monetary welfare or even our lives. In other words, those that don't really believe Black Lives Matter. If they did believe it, they'd use their influential financial largesse to lobby local, state, and federal officials to create policies and create laws to move this nation closer to a racially equitable society in general, and to jail killer cops in particular. What I mean by that, you know, we see that we can protest and demonstrate and rally when a white cop murders an innocent Black person. And yeah, that certainly carries some weight. And I encourage activists to do the right thing lawfully, of course, non-violently, of course. But there's more to it than that. We need to pressure, for example, some major corporations and have those major corporations say, for example, hey, we're going to boycott cities that allow their police department to murder Black people. So if I got, let's say, for example, I'm the CEO of the ABC Corporation, and I got I got branches in every state, and I got branches in most of the cities in those states. So let's say I find out that there's, for example, 61 counties in Pennsylvania. So I got like 5 or 6 branches in 5 or 6 counties in Pennsylvania. But I find out, for example, that Philadelphia's police department is notoriously racist and brutal, and nobody's doing anything about that. Well, as the CEO of that ABC corporation, I need to move out of Pennsylvania. I'm taking all of my business out of Pennsylvania. Why? Because Philadelphia has cops who are killing people. So corporations who benefit from Black consumer dollars, they have to be our allies. Either they're with us or they're against us. I got about 3 minutes left, so let me just quickly go through this. And here's what I point out. For example, here's what I write. You do remember, don't you, that Starbucks initially banned employees, this is back in 2016, banned employees from wearing apparel and accessories at work that support Black Lives Matter. Well, when folks found out about that, and we know what happened here in Philadelphia with the Starbucks, a strange thing happened when people found out about it. After that mega coffee house / roastery chain was systemically hit hard in a viral social media boycott threat campaign. After Starbucks felt the sting of people threatening, didn't actually implement, but threatening a boycott, what happened? All of a sudden, not only did Starbucks come to the realization that Black lives really do matter, it also agreed to order 250,000 Black Lives Matter t-shirts for its staff and partners. So first, they told the employees, you can't wear that Black Lives Matter stuff. They heard the threat of a boycott. Not only did they say you can wear it, but we are ordering 250,000 specialty Black Lives Matter t-shirts for its staff and partners. And folks are running out of time, but please, I need you to do this. Get that article from the Philadelphia Tribune. It's in the Philadelphia Tribune at phillytrib.com. It's entitled, If Black Folks Ain't Hired, White Businesses Must Get Fired. And let me just tell you what I did. So I reached out to the following. First, the largest employers in Philadelphia. 2, the employers with the largest Black consumer base in Philadelphia. 3, employers situated in largely Black neighborhoods. And 4, employers profiting largely from Black municipal taxpayer dollars. So I went through a list of those companies in and around Philadelphia that meet that definition of what I just laid out. For example, alphabetically speaking, Acme Markets, Aramark, Bayada Home Healthcare, CVS. I then included the city of Philadelphia, also Comcast Corporation. In addition, Crown Holdings, Drexel University, Einstein Healthcare, Jefferson Health System, Philadelphia Building and Construction Trades Union, SEPTA, Temple University, University of Pennsylvania, UPS, Urban Outfitters, Vanguard, and several others. Just wrote to them, asking them about their policies and practices regarding Black employees. Several of them have responded, some of them didn't, but stay tuned with the Tribune and I'll keep you updated. There's so much stuff I have laid out here. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time, but just read the article I mentioned. I want to give a big, and I do mean a very big shout out to attorney extraordinaire, Thomas Fitzpatrick of the preeminent Mincy Fitzpatrick Ross LLC law firm. That's Pennsylvania's largest African-American civil rights, personal injury, and criminal defense law firm. I want to thank him and all the attorneys who are part of that firm. But more important, I want to thank you all for tuning in to today's show. I certainly want to thank and extend my great appreciation to our producer extraordinaire, Roland. But mostly, as I said, it's you, the viewer of TV Courtroom. And in today's show, like in every show, it goes like this. Think Black. I'm out.